Which one is better? Because sometimes they're not good. While I'm getting it, there was someone buying one. Buying a shiny.
It's a lot more.
Most people take shiny. Boy. Oh, really? Let's sit down, bro.
Five on the left, two on the right. Allah, Father of the universe.
Allah, Father of the universe.
Father of love.
Father of love.
Truth. Peace. Freedom. And justice. Allah, my protector. My guide. And my salvation. By night. And by day. His holy prophet. Noble Juali. Islam. Prophet warns all Muslims governor ordered to read proclamation at each meeting. I hereby inform all members that they must end all radical, agitating speeches while at work, in their homes, or on the streets. We are for peace and not destruction. Stop flashing your cards at Europeans. It causes confusion. Remember, your card is for your salvation. Failure to obey these orders will be of severe consequence. We are for love, truth, peace, freedom, and when these principles are violated, justice must then take its course. Any member or group of members who hold malicious feelings toward the temple or the prophet or violate the divine covenant of the Moorish movement will receive their reward from Allah for their unjust deeds. All true Moors will and must obey the law as laid down to them by their prophet. If they lose confidence in their prophet, they should turn in their card and button, cease wearing their turban and fez, and return to the state where I, the prophet, found you. This is a holy and divine movement founded by the prophet Noble Juali. And if the prophet is not right, the temple is not right. The prophet, therefore, is sending out a divine plea to all Moorish Americans that they do their part in protecting their prophet and the temple. This is an everlasting movement founded by the prophet through the will of Allah to redeem his people from their sinful ways. Noble Juali, Islam. To be proclaimed at every meeting, Islam. I am glad to know that I have a few faithful Moors among you all, and I desire for them to know the truth and the divine truth. There is a host of jealousy about me and the movement now by the same people of our side of the nation that claimed that I was only a joke and unreal. But now, since they have found out from the government officials and the nations of the earth that this is the only sole foundation that all Asiatics must depend upon for their earthly salvation as American citizens, they are working every scheme that they can to disqualify me so they may take charge of the situation. I have notified all these things to you long ago in the past. It is through the faithful Moors that attribute to the movement and uplifting funds. The ones that paid their divine respect to me and the movement will be remembered. That is why I am calling upon all faithful Moors to increase their faithfulness to me, your prophet, and your divine Moorish movement. I need finance, and I need it badly. Never before have I needed finance so badly as I do at present, so I can shove aside the discord that is facing the nation. It all comes through jealousy because of my fame and nobility. The nations of the world will not recognize the movement without I, the prophet, being head. It has been proven by my works which I have performed in the past few years. Prophet Noble Juali, Islam. To the members of the Moorish Science Temple of America, Islam. This is the instruction from your Prophet Noble Juali. Be faithful unto your forefathers' divine and national creed, that you would be blessed for your good deeds that you sow in the flesh. Allah is the one that judges the world, and his judgment is now on, but the weak can comprehend it not. The end of time is drawing near, so says Allah to his divine prophet, I, Noble Juali. And that's why many hearts have been turned to stone. Many have eyes to see, but cannot see, ears to hear, but cannot hear, lest they would be confounded of their sins. These are trying hours now, dear Moors, and every evil spirit is moving, and they are trying every weak mind to overthrow and drag out the true foundation that has been laid, and to cause confusion in the minds of the ones that do believe. But if you have the true love of Allah and the spirit of your forefathers, you fear not what you hear or see, but would sacrifice the utmost of your very life to protect your movement and your prophet. Watch your enemies, dear Moors. Your enemies are the ones that speak against your prophet and ridicule him to the very lowest, and the ones that speak against your divine and national principles of your temples. Act accordingly, and Allah would bless you for your good work. Peace, your divine prophet, Noble Juali. Islam. Peace and love. I just wanted to read this proclamation again. The 2020 proclamation, if nobody got to hear it. Chicago, City of Chicago, recognition extended to Prophet Noble Jew Ali on the 134th anniversary of his birth, and designation of January 8th through January 15th as Moorish American Week in Chicago by Alderman Roderick T. Sawyer. Resolution honoring the 134th anniversary of the birth of Prophet Noble Jew Ali. Whereas on January 8th, 1886, Prophet Noble Jew Ali was born in the state of North Carolina, destined to become the first patriot and founding father of the Moorish Divine and National Movement. It was Noble Jew Ali's belief that African Americans were all Moors, descendant from the ancient Moabites, thought to be inhabitants of Northwest Africa. And whereas in 1913, Noble Jew Ali founded the Canaanite Temple in Newark, New Jersey, and established congregations in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, Washington, D.C., and Detroit, Michigan. In 1925, he arrived in Chicago to establish the Moorish Science Temple of America as the headquarters of his Moorish Divine and National Movement, a network of alternative spiritualities that focused on the power of the individual to bring about personal transformation through mystical knowledge of the divine within. And whereas it was in this city that Prophet Noble Jew Ali built a civic organization to teach those things necessary to make his adherents better citizens. Since his work was largely religious, in accordance with the divine inspiration of God Allah and the laws of the state of Illinois on July 20th, 1928, Prophet Noble Jew Ali convened a meeting of his followers to formally adopt this religious body politic under the corporate aegis of the Moorish Science Temple of America, filing as a religious institution on August 1st of the same year with the Cook County Recorder of Deeds office, and declared to the Moorish Americans everywhere that Chicago, Illinois will be their new Mecca. And whereas it is the fervent belief of the congregants of the Moorish Science Temple of America that until the coming of the universal prophet Noble Jew Ali, the resurrected nation of Moorish Americans who, as a result of the 13th Amendment, were emancipated from slavery in 1865, but had yet to reestablish and reunite themselves with the human family of nations. And whereas, having drawn its power and authority from the great Quran of Muhammad and guided by Allah, as well as the 5 highest principles known to man, love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, it is the mission of the Moorish Science Temple of America to propagate the faith and extend the learning and truth of the great prophet Noble Jew Ali throughout this nation. Now therefore be it resolved that we, the mayor and members of the mayor and members of the City of Chicago City Council gathered together on this 18th day of December 2019 to hereby designate the 8th of January 2020 as Prophet Noble Jew Ali Day, and January 8th through 15th of 2020 as Moorish American Week in the city of Chicago, the Moorish American Mecca, in honor of the 134th anniversary of the birth of his holy and divine prophet of God Allah and his magnanimous work of redeeming the Moorish Americans, as well as uplifting fallen humanity worldwide, and recognize the events planned for this time. Be it further resolved that a suitable copy of this resolution be prepared and presented to Brother Shaw L., Grand Governor and Divine Minister of Moorish Science Temple of America, Temple number 25, Roderick T. Sawyer, Alderman, 6th Ward, December 16, 2019. Islam. Amir, your thoughts on that? Please. If you have any thoughts, you can express those right now. One of the things that stood out was in the second paragraph. He arrived in Chicago to establish the Moorish Science Temple of America as the headquarters of his Moorish Divine and National Movement, a network of alternative spiritualities that focused on the power of the individual to bring about personal transformation through mystical knowledge of the divine within. Just the fact that they went there with wherever they went and got their research from, as far as Noble Drew Ali's mission and what the purpose of the temple is and what it's there for. Some of that we're going to go into today. We got the message of Aquaria again, and they have a chapter in there dealing with faith and works, and the idea that there has to be some type of activity from the people. So this is part of where we're looking at this going, that we acknowledge Noble Drew Ali's position that all Moors are active, not passive, and taking your place in that activity doesn't mean go get tickets and to go fight them, or create issues for yourself to try to prove some Moorish whatever, right? The idea is that we've been given a wealth of knowledge that's on the mystical side, and then that is supposed to assist us in our personal transformation. And then once you do that, once you have that personal transformation, now you can take whatever it is that you have and then bring it to this to make this better, right? One of the issues that we have is that we're so bombarded with generational curses that the personal transformation is usually a longer battle than it's supposed to be, because as we know, once we get into this information, we start learning, we start applying, and then you have instances where you're reflective of how you were brought up and what your parents used to say and your uncle used to whatever and grandma used to whatever, and you realize that some things are actually in line with moral science that we used to do, and then you realize some things are totally out the window with regard to moral science. There's no connection to it whatsoever. So realizing that this is about personal transformation, this is about man reaching deific life, this is about correcting ourselves, this is about being the generations who are going to end the generational curses, knowing that moving forward, we're not going to A, B, C, D, whatever it is that we're not going to do with our posterity, so that these routine things don't continue with our people, because it's almost like, in most instances, it's almost like we're sort of going backwards because of all the stuff that we have to fix, all the issues that we're coming into realization of, but they're not things that you're just gonna move this here and it's fixed. It's a process that we have to go through of cleansing all these curses that we have, that we haven't even considered looking into until we came into this info.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Good one.
Just to add to that, it's like during the time of when we were being fooled and being tricked into this thing, into what we thought was, there was not so many people, so it wasn't so hard to do, to trick us out of it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you want your children to come to the Christian school? Look at the beautiful Christian school. Just give them the Christian name and they can register and they're good to go. And then our parents maybe start to say, Mom, I want to go to this school. It's only a name. Give me the name, let me go. And then it's easy. Back then it was easy. Now, it's not so easy to take us out of that what we were in.
Yeah.
So it's more work for us now, but it doesn't mean that it's not the right thing to do. That's where we start. Might be few, but that's where we started.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Just to add to what you're saying, because now it's not easy.
Yeah.
Like when they were doing, there was less people.
Yeah.
The United States back in the 1800s, 1700s, was maybe 4 million people. Now it's over 300 million people.
Yeah.
Figure that one out. The correct.
Yeah.
I just want to add to the proclamation that you said. I'm noticing there's a proclamation here from John Tory.
Mm.
I'm just curious what that is all
Peace,
about.
bro. Say again?
I said on the wall
Yeah.
here, I see a proclamation from
Yeah.
John Tory. Is that something of the same caliber as Chicago?
Not the request that we made was for this with the same caliber
Yeah.
of getting Noble Drew Ali Day acknowledged,
Mhm.
and then getting Moorish American Week acknowledged. What I guess when they did their research on what we were requesting, they came back and said, "Oh, we already have something."
Oh, really?
Right? But what they gave us was the Indigenous Day proclamation,
Oh.
right? Which leads us to, okay, well, obviously they did their research on the Moorish movement to attach the indigenous thing to it, because that's not what we went for. We went for Drew Ali Day and Drew Ali Week,
Yeah.
and they came back and said, "Oh no, we already got one for this." Now it could be, one, the not wanting to acknowledge Drew Ali's position, because then if they acknowledge that, then who knows whoever else they're gonna have to give acknowledgement to, right? Once they give it to the Moors, then you know what I mean. It's open season for everybody, right? And the other side of it was, because they gave us the Indigenous Proclamation, they sort of get out of the Moorish paradigm, right? They release themselves of having to deal with the Moors, because they've been so accustomed dealing with the indigenous people, the Indians, the Métis, the First Nations, or whatever like that. So to stay in that lane, they just give us a proclamation for indigenous, and they already know that the people aren't gonna put the two together.
Right.
You know what I mean? That's why we made it a flyer, so that it's something that people could see that the city of Toronto,
Give them to people.
city of Toronto recognize that. First of all, they recognize who the Moors are, because they didn't come back to us like how people talk online. Oh, that sovereign citizen, whatever like that. We're not going with that. The Moors are only from Africa or whatever. We're Toronto. You know what I mean? Like, they didn't deny anything. They didn't come back and say, "Nah, you guys are full of BS. We don't want to hear none of that." They just took the energy and put it towards something else.
Yeah. Which is pretty much this. The more science is
Yeah,
indigenous.
Yeah, right.
It's just the titles.
Yeah.
So we should do it again. It's
Yeah.
what we should do.
Yeah. And maybe it's even in something for different jurisdictions. All the Moors, wherever they're at, hit up the city for a proclamation.
For a proclamation, yeah.
You know what I mean? Brampton should,
Yeah.
Whitby, Ajax, Hamilton, wherever, anywhere where Moors are, Kitchener, London, wherever, Montreal, wherever, just to see.
I've heard
what the
of
response
some
is.
Moors in I think I was in a job and I seen them where they're painting, and he's like, "Oh, my father was there and everything," and he's like, "Oh, you're part of Moorish Science Temple," and he was from I never seen him here though. I think I told some of the Moors here about him. But I'm wondering now, are Moors any more connected with other temples in Ontario?
We're it.
I know we're the whole. I know.
So we'll be not.
We're it.
Like I said, I
Oh,
seen that.
all right. Thank you.
Moors are so crazy that they're Moors. And we're kind of all over. But I don't know if they're interconnected with us. I haven't heard of Moors that are dirty Moors that are selling. Actually, we always talk about it before.
Yeah.
There are package selling. How come we're not trying to get all together with them. But what should we do to get together?
Well, with
That's what I'm thinking.
you know, the idea with this being here is so that all those Moors who don't have a temple, never been in a temple, they say that they're Moors, but they're not part of the temple, they should be coming here. Including the people who are doing the 5,000 packages and whatever like that. All of them should have been in here.
Charter of any sort?
No. Majority of them are just
one charter in the whole Canaanland.
yeah.
This is ours, right?
It's
here.
ours,
It's
yeah.
right here. And
Yeah.
all the other ones are run fraud.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
Simple as that.
So how do we get through to them?
No, you can't. You're not gonna get through to them because remember, majority of those people were here
Ah.
and left.
And that.
It's not like the ones who are quote unquote established as a body of Moors, whatever they're doing, whether they got a website, whether they just go to court and give out cards or whatever the case is, right? Those are individuals who were here, and then they left, and then now they're doing whatever they're doing out there now.
Is that a disconnect? Is that a bad thing? Is that a good thing?
Yeah, I mean, it's a disconnect from the perspective that they should be here. It's a disconnect from the perspective that they shouldn't even left. You know, like we say all the time, we go back to first Noble Juali Day, and then second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, up to 11th, right? Minus the COVID stuff where we weren't in each other's presence or whatever. There should be 500 people in this temple. Like, that's just what it should be. And then on top of that, we're talking about, okay, so Noir knows whoever he knows, he told them they should have joined.
Like her, for example,
Whoever you
I know.
Right? Go ahead, Mark.
And her uncle know me and hear how I talk. And then he said to me, my niece would like to talk to you. And there she is right now.
Yeah.
There she is right now. This is perfect example.
Yeah.
I never met her. I met her uncle. And I know what I'm on is the right thing. And he knows, and he said, my niece sound like you would like to hear about that.
Yeah. Right. But then that also goes back to Juali with the oral statements that it's only going to be a handful saved.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So, like, we know Noir's out there telling people about this. And it's maybe, what, 5, 6 people that came in, and then one stayed.
And another one, he's gone to Alberta now.
Yeah.
His correction, character status,
Yeah.
his ID,
Yeah.
moved to another city, which is good.
Yeah.
He's on his
Right. So the whole thing with the unity is supposed to be anybody who knows that they're Moors and they're in quote unquote Canada, they should be a part of this temple. Because if Moors in Switzerland are part of the temple, Moors in Germany, Moors throughout the states are part of the temple, and the people here don't have any excuse. Right? If there's Moors throughout the states that they're not even here, they can't even be in the building here, and they're here, mentally, online, you know what I mean? They email, they keep in contact or whatever like that, then the people here don't have any excuse. Because this is here, and we're talking about, even as far as, say, 2010, 11, doing Afrofest and stuff like that, and people still not being receptive. Going to different community centers throughout the city, having events and all that stuff. Yeah, the event was cool, but be part of the temple. Well, Islam and Allah, and well, I don't know. Noble Juali's not a prophet, and well, is this a Muslim thing? I don't want to be Muslim and whatever. You could only do so much as far as get them. The most we could do is that door is open.
Yeah.
Anybody could enter anytime. If the door's closed, there's a phone number right there. Leave a message, and somebody will get back to you. You know, go ahead, Mark.
Sometimes I have to tell them that define Muslim and Muslim
Right.
Yeah.
to let them understand, because the Muslim is pushed in a way that when you hear that song, you hear suicide bombing.
Mm-hmm.
You hear that's what's in your head when you hear Muslim.
Right.
So I got to break it down.
Yeah.
And there's one fine example from the so-called black president, Obama. His last speech before he leave power, he said the Muslim, M.O., welcome United States of America when they come here.
Now that you said that, let me ask you this. That you said that. What when he made that statement and he said Muslim instead of Muslim,
Mm-hmm.
how come you don't see those as the same? Muslim and Muslim.
Yeah, I don't see that the same.
Let's talk on that for a second.
Mhm. I don't see that the same.
You know what I'm saying? How come you don't see it as the same?
Because like I said before, once you say the wording I understood, and the practices I understood, so that's why I don't see it as the same. But at the same time, the Muslim over there, they are our brothers. Whatever they do, but they are our brothers. But he didn't speak of them welcoming the United States of America. He's speaking of us over here. As Muslim, welcome them to the country. Goes to the treaty with George Washington and everything that take place. But not knowing what I know now, maybe I would hear him say it and still think it's MU if I don't read it good or whatever.
Because there's a lot of that going on right now with people who are of the Muslim persuasion,
Mm-hmm.
but they're Moors,
Mm-hmm.
and they're putting both of those things side by side,
Right.
saying that they're equal.
Mm-hmm.
That Muslim and Muslim is the same thing. Just put
What I know,
that's
you know, we practice Sufism.
yeah.
So Sufism is like this is older, ancient way. They used to say, really here at once, it's Sufis. That's not right anymore. Right, so they practice what?
Yeah,
Sunni
majority of
Islam,
Sunni,
Shia,
Sunni,
so
Shia,
that's their-
yeah.
They have their own sects as well within Islam itself.
Mm.
So we practice Sufi. They practice Sufi, so they have their own way, I guess, their prayers, the way they see it. And, their practices are kind of a bit different, but we worship the same creator.
Yeah.
You can look at it like the Orthodox and the Roman Catholic Church. Right? Or like Protestants. There's only a different sects in Christianity. There's different sects, same.
Even with Islam, they define it different than us.
They define it.
Yeah.
Islam. This
Yeah.
Islam, they define it different.
Yeah. But again, too, majority of the people who go with Muslim, they can't claim the archaic.
Yeah.
They can't claim the older terms because the older terms isn't them.
No.
The older terms is people who predate them,
Yeah.
right? So when they go there and they start saying, Muslim and Allah, peace be unto prophets and all that stuff, they're missing what they're saying here in the proclamation, that the mystical knowledge of the divine within. That's how they're missing it. They're looking at the divine reflection, not the divine that they are.
That point, rule number.
Right? They're looking at the divine as some external thing to themselves, right? Opposed to looking at it how they're supposed to look at it, that divine's within first, and then it's external. But if you're looking out there first and expect God to, the Holy Spirit's going to enter you and all that stuff, it's probably not the Holy Spirit. More likely. If you're speaking in tongues, rolling on the floor and stuff like that, that's not Holy Spirit. You know what I mean? That's some other spirit. Right? Any other thoughts on the resolution honoring Noble Drew Ali? So we got today the message of Aquaria, the significance and mission of the Aquarian age. And this is from the teachings of the Order of the Christian Mystics. And the chapter we're looking at today is faith and works. So going back to the idea of the Quran lessons, salvation is a 3-step ladder: belief, faith, fruition. In the faith step, there's something tied to that called the works.
I could relate to that. I
Good,
remember when
man.
the Jehovah's Witness Kingdom Hall. That's why they go house to house.
Yeah.
Because they say faith without work is dead.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I can understand that.
Yeah.
Faith without work is dead.
Right. Ye shall know them by their fruits. Do men gather grapes of thorns or figs of thistles? St. Matthew 7:16. What doth it profit, my brethren, though a man say he has faith and have not works? Can faith save him? Even so faith, if it hath not works, is dead, being alone. Right, there you go, right there.
I know.
The word faith has been variously interpreted as being belief or mere credulity, even superstition, as confidence in a person or thing, and more commonly to designate a particular religion such as the Christian faith, the Buddhistic faith, etc. We, however, prefer to use St. Paul's definition. Faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. Right? Faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. Right? So the only way that you're going to see it is if you put the work for that thing to manifest. It's not happening if the works aren't there. Right? Faith and works are like the two ends of a magnet. Faith, the unseen, negative or attracting end; works, the seen, positive or manifested end. The substance of a thing is its soul, that which makes it alive or essentially distinguishes it. Therefore, we quote unquote hope not for the temporal outer manifestation of things, but to find the reality back of them, back of all manifested life. And by faith, we pierce the enshrouding outer seeming, and with our inner senses gain evidence of that which, although not seen, really exists, just as the psychologists seek for the motive back of every art. The motive may be unseen, yet it is potent to produce the result noted. A thing hoped for, if that hope is to be more than a hope, if it is to be manifested, must be worked for and must find a channel. That which is unseen can be evidenced outwardly only by the works which it brings forth in the realm of the seen. For instance, a young tree is planted in dark, cold earth. We only see a sapling with bare twigs, yet we are told it is a fig tree and it is alive. We have faith that the unseen forces of life within the air earth, water, and fire, will so fill those bare and leafless branches that in the fullness of time they shall bring forth fruit. Yet we know that it requires something more than faith, and those unseen forces of the tree is to bear perfect fruit. For the forces of nature, unaided by man, will produce only wild fruit, small, imperfect, bitter, and with little nourishment. Therefore, if the unseen works of God are to come into evidence in perfection, man must provide adequate channels for the expression of his faith, or all that is hoped for cannot be evidenced. He must add to his faith works, must dig around the tree, must prepare the soil, must fertilize it, must protect it from rodents, from insects, from blights, etc. So with the manifesting of our tree of life within, only as we perform the works necessary can the forces of its life make our faith manifest in perfection. Only so can our tree bring forth in our lives the things hoped for. Yet, since we have compared faith to the soul or real substance, we must not merely hope someday to realize the inner life or substance of that which we believe, but we must realize that since the soul of man is the substance or real self, and the outer personality but a manifestation in earth conditions, if we are to prove to ourselves that our faith is really a living factor and true, we must definitely seek to correlate with its substance, the soul or real self. Right? So in order for the Moorish movement, for the Moorish nation to be what it's supposed to be, we can have all the visions that we want of what this is. Buildings and hospitals for the Moors, and all the Moors got their own tags, and all the Moors got their own IDs, and all the Moors have their own whatever. But without the work going in by all those Moors who are looking for that to manifest those things, is probably not going to happen. Which is where it goes into having some type of guideline as to, well, what should happen. Okay, well, Juali said temple, and then temple should have a school, and then all the members should be active, not passive. That alone is going to create the works that the faith needs in order for the manifestation to happen. Just that alone, just that statement alone. All Moors are active, not passive. They talk about in the additional laws about Moors standing around, and they're getting fined if you're standing around, because you're not supposed to be passive in this. It's not supposed to be that there's nothing to do, because there's so much that has to get done that there's no way that no one has work.
Like what I was talking this morning about retirement.
Right.
There's no retirement.
Right.
He just
there's constant working at this, and we were talking about this on the way up here too, that when we look at all the other nations, right, all the other nations already have individuals that's putting back into the nation. People aren't just extracting from it, they're actually putting in first so that they can extract, right? Whereas with the Moorish paradigm, people just keep taking out of it and then not replacing what they take out of it, right? So there has to be that idea of giving back to your nation in order for the nation to have something. If you're not giving anything to it, then don't expect to get anything. Again, Noble Juali making that reference, that if you aren't in relation to dues, if you aren't paying your dues, then when you're in a financial situation, which what the dues is supposed to be there for, to make sure that you can get something, how could you expect to get if you didn't put in? And then that goes on all the different levels. It goes on to activities, it goes in relationships, it goes with whatever it is that we're dealing with. If you're not putting in your 100, how are you telling that other person put in 100? right? Any thoughts before we carry on? Therefore, we must go deeper than merely to believe all that we are told, because man knows not by being told. We must use our God-given intuition to know the true nature of that which is offered to us as a fig tree. This will be the realization of a living faith, i.e., faith in the power of the divine self within us to discriminate and recognize the essential nature or soul or the substance of things hoped for in all things. Conversely, if we see a tree bringing forth certain fruit, we know that it is that particular kind of tree and no other, no matter what other name the nurserymen may attach to it, or how it has been misrepresented by those who have had an interest in so doing. So that goes same thing with this, right? The Moorish movement over the years has a tree, and then it's a function. There's certain fruits that's supposed to come from it, right? Over the years, so many people have taken aspects of this and created their own thing, and then now they're pushing their own thing as that's what this is, right? Regardless of what the nurseryman may attach to it or how it's been misrepresented, it's always going to be what it is. So the Moorish Science Temple, the Moorish movement, the Moorish nation is always going to be about Moors learning to love instead of hate, Moors living by the 5 principles, Moors being themselves, Moors seeing their brother and sister in adversity and assisting them, not denying them, because that's what this is. So as soon as you get, they have the thing about, well, where's the Moorish unity? How come the Moors aren't united? Well, like we said, we know Moors near Germany and Switzerland. So what do you mean no Moorish unity? We know Moors all throughout the States. How is there no unity amongst the Moors? Maybe those people that can't see the unity are not with the proper Moors. Why they don't see any unity, right? In other words, we judge the tree by its works or fruits, for the fruits are the same as the tree's expression, and prove the tree, even though some of its leaves may be imperfect or may wilt and fall. The same is true of ourselves. Our fruits or our works are the best expression of the unseen self. We have been able to manifest even though they are far from what we hope for. Not what we think, not what we intend, but what we do, what we accomplish, what we express is the manifested us. For the world can know us only by our fruits, our works. And conversely, the works of a man, society, movement, or order represent that man, society, movement, or order, no matter what anyone may say about them, and no matter how many imperfections or limitations they may have. Do men gather grapes of thorns or figs of thistles? Then he shall reward every man according to his work, to every man according to his deeds. The works of a man, society, movement, or order represent that man, society, movement, or order. So that goes back to Noble Drew making the statement of man and Allah being one. And when man honors man, he's honoring Allah, because they're the same. There's no separation. There's only separation when you start getting into the dogmatic stuff of the orders, where the gods out there and the prophets are out there and the whatever is, everything is external. When it has to be recognized within by the individual. When the Moors recognize their nation, then there's a Moorish nation. When the Moors recognize their prophet, then there's a prophet. When the Moors recognize each other as Els Beys Days Als Alis, and we have a certain obligation to each other, then we would act like we have those obligations to each other by manifesting those. The issue that again that we've had is that there's so much generational stuff that we're dealing with that we haven't dealt with, that those things sort of take precedent before we can get some things done, right? And we can't fix ourselves without fixing the problems of the past. We have to look at what we're doing and how is what we're doing fixing the issues so that the issues don't come up again later on. Any thoughts or comments?
And it's good that we have the school now because we start fixing it from a young age.
Right. Right. Man may be likened to the musical staff on which a symphony is written. His 5 senses may be compared to the 5 lines of the staff, while the 4 spaces between the lines may be likened to the 4 elements: fire, air, water, earth. These elements are continually playing on our unseen part in the melody. Yet man must learn to use his 5 senses to listen, to understand and interpret the notes that fall in the spaces as well as those that fall upon the lines. Above the 5 lines, senses, is the infinite ether of space, which is forever impinging upon man's senses, but of which he is usually aware only as vague yearnings because it transcends his physical senses. Below the staff, there are also many notes written in the deep emotions of longings unspeakable, of experiences garnered, of suffering and pain. But if man endeavors to interpret the symphony of life through faith, through aspiration, he may reach up to notes of infinite harmony, joy, and ecstasy, and join in the angelic chorus forever singing around the great white throne. But he must also learn that the notes below the staff are necessary to complete the melody. Therefore, to express the melody aright, man must learn to listen to all the notes and sound them clear, true, and understandingly. But alas, many hear only the notes that fall upon the lines, senses, and all other notes remain unheard. To them, the psalm of life seems imperfect or even discordant, yet all the notes can be heard by faith and expressed in the life through works. So going back again to us getting into this information, getting into the Moorish paradigm, and it's said that show yourself approved, right? Wise man changes his mind often because he's always learning new things. There's no, one way that this thing is going to be. There's no linear way of looking at the Moorish paradigm. But that's only gonna happen with the individuals who are taking it from the perspective of like looking at the notes and realizing that there's more than just the senses that we're attached to, right? The senses that's just the surface. We need to get to deeper understanding, overstanding of what man is, who man is, and what the purpose of the being is. If the purpose of the being is whatever the avatar is getting, the absolutely wrong perspective, right? Again, Moors have a lot of stuff that we're dealing with. There's been a lot of damage that's been caused. There's a lot of trauma. There's a lot of toxicity that we have to, through studying, clear out the toxicity before we start getting into the active realm of wanting to manifest certain things. Because if you're trying to manifest If you're trying to manifest righteousness with toxicity there, it's probably not going to be as righteous as you thought it would be, right? While we are all singing the same grand symphony, yet each has his or own part, and each has implanted within exactly the ability needed to fit him to perfect and express his part. The great law never expects us to gather grapes from thorns nor figs from thistles, and just as surely must each one bring forth the fruit of his own perfected life. If we try to imitate another, we fail to bring forth our own fruit. And when the Lord of life passes by seeking figs and finding none, he will command that the barren fig tree be cut down, not as a punishment or a curse, but because in the parable illustrates of the manifest law that unless each individual gathers the forces of life and puts forth all possible effort to utilize his powers to grow and bring forth the fruit that is the natural result of his stage of evolution, he is not only failing himself, but is encumbering the ground, i.e., is so misapplying the forces of the great evolutionary urge within him that all mankind is held back. So we go back to the thing with when they're making reference of the symphony, and everybody's an instrument. And then we look at the Moorish nation, and every Moor has a position to play in the Moorish symphony, right? And every individual has to be master of whatever it is they got that they're bringing to the table, right? Only when you're mastering yourself would you be able to apply whatever it is that needs to apply. And then you have the situation where, you have somebody's a master trumpeter, but they want to do the piano. They just learned piano yesterday. Why don't you just do the trumpet? Well, Allah said that it's time for me to change. Well, no, you're a master trumpeter. Stick to the trumpet, because that's what's needed right now. We already got a piano guy. We don't need two piano guys right now, right? Whatever it is your role is, whatever the force has ordained you with to bring to this is what you should bring to it. Whatever you learn after, great. It's not like it can't be used, but we want to be exercising what we're good at. You don't want to be a novice at something in order to get some perfected manifestation. Not happen like that. If you want perfected manifestation, you have to be perfect too, right? Any thoughts or questions? That's good. The parable of the barren fig tree is frequently misunderstood. It was not cursed in the way which the faulty interpretation seems to imply, for we are told the time of figs was not yet, and it would surely be most unjust to curse a tree because it did not bear fruit out of season. The true interpretation is revealed in the 13th verse of the passage, where we are told that the tree had plenty of leaves, and yet there were no sign of fruit. When a fig tree is full of leaves, there should be a natural course of events, be figs forming, or at least blossoms, even if the full time of ripe figs was not at hand. For the buds must come first, then the leaves, then the blossoms, then later the fruit. One of the functions of the leaves being to protect the ripening fruit. Hence the symbology of the parable is that each soul who is planted in the vineyard of the Lord and is enriched and tended for 3 seasons, or 3 periods during which the body, mind, and spirit have been given special attention or special opportunities for unfoldment and advancement, and yet fails to advance when the Lord of life comes to the soul seeking figs and finds none, because that soul has used all its forces in making a great show that will attract the attention or the admiration of the world, mere leaves, but they were never so beautiful. The great law as karma will surely entail upon the soul what may seem to be a curse, namely that it shall not be able to bear fruit and meet the requirements of the Lord of life when it desires to do so. That is, in the next incarnation, such as one will greatly desire spiritual development, but will find himself so environed that it will be almost impossible to attain it or manifest it. Right? Going back to the same thing of not being on your path, being on some other path. You're going to put all this energy into this thing that's not your path to get to the end of it and realize that, oh, you shouldn't have put all this energy into this thing. That wasn't, where the energy was supposed to go. So now you got to go back now and then start again. If you just did it from the jump, you wouldn't have to be going back and forth or whatever, right? And also like we were talking about earlier, this is about spiritual development first. Yes, we got IDs and we got all these things. We could not pay taxes and whatever the case is. All those things are there. Those are things that are the manifest. You don't have to work for that. You just put the number down and they take the taxes off. It's not like you got to go do something for that. It's there. It's the spiritual development that we have to work toward. Once we start mastering ourselves spiritually, then the transformation can take place of the spirit appearing in the physical. The essence appearing in the physical, and us being able to see it. So, like when you say with you're probably frequent now at this point with the angel numbers, and that every time, more times than less, you go look at the clock, you're going to see some type of relation to the angel numbers. You're going to see something, please, right? You're going to see something. It's going to be evident to you that, oh, the angels are looking out, the ancestors are looking out. The fact that you were able to even pick up on it or see it right before it changed the number or whatever the case is signs to you that the spirit's working with you, right? Omens, you see in owls and deer and stuff like that. We live in a city, you're not supposed to see certain stuff, right? If you see a hawk on a tree by a building or something like that, that's an omen. That's ancestors speaking to you. You have to be in a certain spiritual vibration for you to even be able to witness that. But then, if that thing was predestined, then were you always going to see it? Were you always just traveling the path and that was just something that's on the path? Or, if you decided to hang a left at the street before and miss that thing, was that you not going with where the divine was taking you to where you have to be? Because everything that is presented from the spiritual aspect is for your spiritual development to unfold more, right? As the Quran says, we're constantly unfolding. Man is constantly blossoming. You might think, oh, wow, that's a beautiful rose I'm becoming or whatever like that. Well, you're probably going to blossom again. And it might be a sunflower next time. It might be a hibiscus. It might be a lilac. It might be whatever, because you're constantly going through this transformation. And again, we're going through all this transformation because the faith that we have needs the works. It's begging us to put this spiritual stuff into practice. Juali said divine and national, right? How many people put the energy to the divine like they put to the national stuff, right? Many more put more energy to the national things, and then the divine will deal with that, later. Let me work on this, taxes thing first. Well, if you worked on the divine, taxes might not even came up if you would have put the energy toward the right place. Moreover, whenever or wherever the life forces are not used to create and bring forth, the threefold law of life, creation, preservation, disintegration, naturally removes the thing that cannot or will not use the forces to bring forth. It must die out, for disintegration is just as surely a part of the law of life as creation and preservation. So that's going into even things like you get into the crystals, for example, and you got your selenite and your onyx and your amethyst and whatever like that. You got your favorite crystal on you all the time, pull it up and whatever like that, and then you lose the crystal, and then you're, oh my God, I can't believe that's the disintegration. That's the natural process. That's the threefold process. The thing was created. You had the ability to preserve the thing, which you did. You put it out in the moonlight, put it out in the sunlight, wiped it down or whatever like that. Got the sage around it and all that, and then the thing disappears. Right, and then you're looking at, oh my God, where is it? No, it's gone because you don't need it anymore. Let's find the next crystal that you need, charge that one up, and then just move forward with that one. Opposed to living in this thing of the disintegrated, the same thing with the death. And then Juali telling us, the ministry of death. It is selfishness to call back to life departed souls that are gone to a better stuff. They're not dealing with this BS that we got to deal with anymore. What are you worried about? What do you want them back here for? When they went to higher realms to go do greater things than we could even do here.
And that comes back to with the Muslim and the Muslims.
Mm-hmm.
They think they're gonna go where they're gonna have 7 wives and milk and honey, and rivers of honey and all that stuff. How could spiritual being need that? We don't need that.
Mm-hmm.
Spiritual being don't use that. Now we need the milk and honey.
Yeah.
Now we need the 7 wives.
Yeah.
In flesh. So that's another way of how they
Yeah.
look at their teaching.
Yeah.
We don't see it like that way.
And
we have the 7 wives now.
Yeah.
And the river full of milk now.
Exactly.
After now we ain't gonna exist.
Yeah.
Not gonna exist.
Yeah. If you go to heaven and there's milk and honey there, it's probably not heaven.
Not heaven. It's not heaven.
It's probably not that. A study of all nature will confirm this, and also the wonderful interactions of the threefold life stream. In southern climates, where life is luxuriant and riotous, we may see buzzards hovering in the air, keeping a watch for every animal that may die, that its carcass may be consumed, lest it spreads disease and death. Hence, a little thought will show how these 3 threads of life are interwoven. For that which removes the dead and decaying carcass preserves the pure life atmosphere. And from the carcass, new creative life springs forth. While in more northern climates, the carcass can more safely be left to enrich the soil, and thus create new life and preserve the equilibrium. Nature's a wonder, isn't it? Inquire of the earth, the air, and the water, of the secrets they hold for you. The earth corresponds to the physical senses, which takes cognizance of only those things which impinge upon them. The air represents the aspirations of the heart, which reach up in longing to the throne of God. The water is the symbol to us of love, ever changing and unstable on earth, yet in its divine aspect over constant and unfathomable as the ocean. The fire is the flame of the Spirit in our hearts, that which warms our hearts, and without which the melody of life will never be flat and lifeless. The world is today passing through an era in which greater power is given unto Satan under the opprobrious and ignominious title of the devil. Ignominious title of the devil. This is an era, therefore, in which evil has great power for a short time, because it is working out its own extinction. Satan, who in reality is Saturn, one of the sons of the light manifesting as stern justice, must and does lead and marshal these powers of darkness and guides them to their own destruction. Yet he leads them in love, for it requires a divine love for one of the sons of God to accept a task involving so much misunderstanding, ignominy, and contumely as the guidance of evil to its own destruction. For love is God and is the consuming Buddhic fire for all that is not in harmony with it. The tree of evil planted by man in the soil of earth has reached its harvest time, and only as it bears its characteristic fruit and the mass of mankind who do not follow their intuition eat of it, can they prove that its fruit brings suffering and death instead of joy and life. So again, activating the spiritual self is going to activate beyond the five senses. Activating beyond the five senses is going to mean clairvoyance, intuition, the things that are unseen, the things that are not the senses, but you know that they're there. But the denial of them is going to bring fruits of suffering and death instead of joy and life. Because this evil tree planted by man, which again, when we go back to our literature, that Satan is just the lower self, is another name for lower self, devil is another name for lower self, all the evils of the world or whatever like that is not some entity, it's man. Man playing around with the forces of nature as if he could do that, right? And the karmic retribution of that falls on everybody. So the one guy who said, yeah, make a nuke or whatever like that, messed everybody up. Because now everybody could just put a finger on the button because one or a group of individuals playing around with nature, right? Anybody else have any thoughts? Any thoughts again? The whole world must taste of this harvest in a measure, for everyone has had something to do with the planting and nourishing of this baneful growth. Even if one has merely stood by and permitted evils to go on unchecked, he must in a measure suffer, just as one must who sees the harvest of his neighbor ravished by insects, yet does nothing to check their spread until they are overrun in their own field. Saturn is the great tester. It is his part in the divine plan to further the redemption of man by helping him to eat of the fruits of his own sowing and to experience the bitter results, that he may be ready the sooner to turn from them and learn to seek the fruits of the tree of life, knowing only too well that man will use his God-given free will to eat the first of the forbidden fruit, and will only turn to the tree of life when he needs healing and saving from himself. And then we look at that with the quote unquote Black community health crisis. And they don't want to hear anything from anybody. They're going to eat their oxtail and their chitterlings and their, whatever it is that they're going to be indulging in. And it's only when doctor tells them, now they want to know about, some holistic health thing. They should have been doing that from the start, right? It's always the God-given free will that gets taken advantage of, because man has the free will to yield with regard to certain things, right? Certain indulgences. Man has the free will to say, you know what, I'm not going to go down that path over there. We're going to go over here. And knowing that, the path that you should have been on is the path of right, the path of righteousness, the path of goodness, the path that, you're going to see everybody who's your friend or whatever. You're going down this path where all your enemies are at. And then want to know how come things are going because you chose to go down the wrong path. You should have stuck to the program. Matter of fact, you should have tapped into your intuition. Intuition would have told you don't go down there, right?
To add to some of what you're saying there with the doctor, he should have told you from babies, don't eat sugar and sweet stuff. So when you get older, you're gonna have diabetes. They don't do that. When you get older and all of that starch and sugar create a crisis for you, you go to him and say,
crisis.
Yeah. You're gonna cut off the starch and the sugar, you're gonna stop it. But now to assist you, you're gonna take this pill one a day, or I give you this needle twice a week, along with cutting down on that sugar intake or whatever. So now he's telling you to come off that sugar now. And he's giving you something else now what you think is going to help you for the rest of your life. And all you have to do from the beginning, don't touch that sugar back. I'm not going to tell you.
Yeah, on top of that, there's,
eh?
I said on top of that, there's the aspect of the fact that eating meat on a regular basis also causes inflammation in the arteries and the blood vessels. And so, which is the onset towards diabetes as well, as far as, your body trying to regulate that. So it's almost like they say that, and then on top of it, they're not gonna say that your meat diet that you've been eating your entire life has anything to do with it.
No.
They're just gonna let you keep eating what you want.
And furthermore, they'll give you more pills to deal with the symptoms that first therapy is giving you.
Keep correct. Then you got stuck into the pill now. Because you start saying to yourself, when I take it, I feel better, good. Yeah, you go.
Right, compounding the problem. Saturn is therefore not the devil. The devil is the synthesis of the evil created by man, which Saturn is helping man to reap, and his testing is in absolute justice. The sons of God came to present themselves before the Lord, and Saturn was among them. The sons of God are the planetary deities, or the 7 expressions of the one white light, each with his own work to do toward the evolution of man and the cosmos. Only this understanding of them can keep the words quoted from clashing with the oft-repeated statement that Jesus was the only begotten Son of God, while the planetary deities are the sevenfold expression of the one Godhead, just as love, justice, etc. may be expressions of one man. The Christ, as manifested by Jesus, is the quote-unquote only begotten Son of this one Godhead, begotten, not made, being of one substance with the Father by whom all things are made. If we consider the planetary rulers as manifestations of the one God working his will and gathered before the Lord, manifesting each in his appointed time the manner before the Lord in accordance with the great law, we will understand why they were sons of God and why Saturn was one of them. Today, we are reaping under Saturn the harvest of all that man has sown during the long period of Saturn's reign, because his cycle is now ended, and we are passing out of his influence and coming under the reign of the occult planet Uranus. Saturn comes, therefore, just as he came in the story of Job, from going to and fro the earth, to each soul who has professed the name of Christ and called himself a follower of Christ must be specially tested. So that's the same thing with all the people who say that they follow Noble Drew Ali and they honor Noble Drew Ali and Noble Drew Ali is the prophet. Don't worry, test is coming. So study your literature, study generally so you can be prepared for when the tests show themselves. And certain Moors are on the frequency that when the tests show themselves, divine law steps in and protects them, based on them being free of the five senses, right, and being into the higher realms of thought.
I always thought of the tests, like for example, let's say I make the intention to level up, so to speak, so stop doing certain things. So when I feel like I'm ready, that same test now is almost like an initiation for me, as opposed to like me being blocked from the initiation. I'm supposed to go through the initiation so that I know that really I'm ready. And the universe sees that I am really ready to graduate to the next level.
Yeah.
You feel what I mean?
Yeah. For behold, all that he hath in thy Saturn's power, this testing comes in love and in perfect justice. It is the fire of divine love, which, while it consumes all that is evil, nevertheless quickens every seed of good. It is justice because each one is tested according to the work he was expected to accomplish. Man does the same thing in his physical works. He tests every so-called inanimate thing needed to accomplish a work. If he builds a bridge, every span is tested to bear a strain far greater than it will probably be subjected to. Every beam, every rivet has its severe test, according to the work it is expected to do. We do not test as a knife that is made to cut bread for the hungry in the same way that we test a bridge span destined to carry much traffic over the river that separates us from the promised land. Yet each will and must pass through the fire and be fitted for its own work. If we conceive of all these materials as sentient lives with little understanding of what structure they are to be part, and hence unable to grasp the reasons why they should thus be tested and be subjected to almost unbearable strains, we will see that they differ but little from man, except in degree. Perhaps we will then cease to murmur and blame God or Saturn for our seemingly unjust treatment. For blessed is the man whom thou chastenest, O Lord, and teachest him out of thy law. Right. So, like you're saying, the test has to happen. Right. That's automatic in the evolution of things.
In anything you do, even in general, you always have to test whatever you do. Because even if you're building something, you're gonna test this wood if it could withstand this pressure that I'm gonna put on it. And you're gonna go by the specification of what they said. This can take on so much weight. So there is test for it too. We'll be sure.
Mm-hmm.
So we facing that test too is just not a way to go.
Yeah. When the passing, good.
Improve the quality. Improve what good quality it is. So,
Right.
the durability of it and all that stuff.
Right.
Same thing with us.
When the passing conditions of the world today are over, and the nations, the leaders, the churches, the societies, the religions, the orders, and individuals have passed through the great testing of Saturn, That which remains will be pure gold, the grains of truth gathered for the planting of the new era. All that was good and wholesome will have been stored up and feed will have been stored up to feed the new race. And those trees which have borne good fruit, no matter if during the testing, heat, and drought some of their leaves have faded, will take their places as good producers for the new humanity. Just as the famous horticulturalist Luther Burbank has gathered from every country in the world thousands of wild trees and plants and is cultivating and testing them and endeavoring to bring them to such perfection that they shall add to the food supply for future generations. If we have helped and fed the spiritually hungry, and the food has nourished their souls, then our tree will stand. If, on the other hand, we have wasted our time shaking from other trees their ripening fruit and trampling it in the mire, and having brought forth little of our own, and little is acrid and unnourishing, even though we conscientiously believe the fruit we destroyed was not as good as it might have been, we must confront the new day hungry and lacking. The fruit, that is order, is bearing season after season, has been bitterly attacked on several occasions, yet the tree still stands and flourishes and brings forth increasing crops each year. So that's relative to what we were talking about in the beginning, that this is the spot that Moors who are in the jurisdiction known as Canada, if they say that they're Moors, they should be here. This is where they're supposed to be. This is the roots. This is ground zero.
Yeah.
From here, you go do whatever else you want to do. But here is where the start's at. If they're not starting here, anything they're going to do is going to fail. Right? Because this is the foundation of what they're claiming they're supposed to be doing, whatever. But if you're not acknowledging this as the foundation, and you're going to create a foundation over there, and then, come over here and shake our trees or whatever like that, try to get some fruits, just like when we're at the other spot. And could I get some 101 questionnaires? Yeah, sure. Here's a stack. Oh yeah, could you seal these documents? Yeah, no problem. Yeah. Oh, could I get some Moors to witness? Yeah, sure, no problem, brother. And then they disappear.
That's right.
And then we hear about them 5 years later. Now they got packages for $5,000 and $10,000. And then we go to Canaanland and we see all their names in there. They're trying to claim houses. They're trying to claim this and that. Stuff failed, and now they're being used as an example to show this is what Moors are doing near the jurisdiction of Canada, trying to claim houses or whatever like that, right?
So these house claims would have worked if they would have came back here?
Say again?
If they would have, them claiming houses or whatnot might have worked if we were all together.
Might have, because them going on their own.
No, we wouldn't claim house. We would claim property, land. Land, huge land. All of us, 10 of us go, hey, we're claiming this. Drop 10, we ain't moving. It's ours.
Like squatters.
Yeah, started out like rest squatters, but it's ours. That's what it should be.
That's what we should be doing.
Yeah, instead of going one-on-one to go fight for a house that's not whatever.
It's not even worth it.
The house holds no value.
Take on the
You
house.
can claim a house, but technically speaking, they have,
Yeah.
well, they've already taken ownership of the land, or at least attempted to, and now we believe that they have. And everyone else.
Or even from the perspective of them claiming the land, them claiming the house, but the house is something that's already done. They're not claiming something that's abandoned. Right? They're not claiming something that's abandoned that you can go tear it down and now you got the land, or that you can build on. They're actually stealing from people. You know what I mean? Because this is our land, means that, somebody with a sign on, somebody with this as their address means that you can go claim it because, they're a foreigner and they're in your own land. It doesn't really work like that. Yeah. It doesn't work like that. That's just stealing. All right.
But you can't help but be in that mindset. If you're aligned with, outside of this space, which is, look outside of yourself, it's all over self. Everywhere you go, it's just, one ego after the next. So if you align with that energy and then you go about,
You feel like you're not doing anything wrong.
well, you're definitely not intuitively aligned. So that means you might be called, you'll have a nudge from lower self and you follow it thinking it's the right thing to do
Mhm.
because you haven't developed the internal compass to be able to know the difference. Which is why you're over here doing all this dumb stuff when there's a whole other stream that you see it and you're so aligned here that you can't even recognize it when it's waving right in your face.
Right. So for example, there's a city the city recorder. When you contact them, they'll put you on a list for abandoned properties that they have access to. And then, when your name comes up on the list, then they call you up and say, okay, well, here, now the list has got 500 names on it. You probably ain't gonna get no calls like that, right? But there's a process for certain things, depending on whatever jurisdiction you're in. So certain jurisdictions you're gonna go into, and they're gonna say, you could adverse possess, right? Which is a form of claiming. There's other ones where you're going to go to the county recorder's office and they'll pull out the book and they'll show you all the stuff that's abandoned and you say, okay, well, that one, where's that one at? And then you go and whether it's pay the taxes that's owed on it or, whatever.
Is that what like Amari did with his place?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure exactly.
He has a proclamation on his door.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
That's more just for show. His family owns that, so he was just doing that from a perspective of posturing, not to say that didn't have any validity, but that would be, in a sense, him taking his own family's wealth or corporate wealth away from him. So that was not what it was in terms of what you saw it being.
Therefore, let no one be dismayed if he finds it again and again attacked by those who stand for autocracy in religious thought and against the spiritual freedom and liberty of conscience and the individual guidance from within which this order advocates. It will be but another testing of Saturn, but it need have but little effect if everyone who has eaten and been nourished by its fruits will give of this love, gratitude, and devotion to protect it. Right? Same thing Joel said, protect the prophet and the temple. Even at your very life, protect it. Because if you don't, ain't nobody else gonna do it. And if you don't, and no one else is, then 50 years are gone and you wouldn't even know that Drew Ali was here. We ask all who wish to help thus to repeat the protecting invocation, morning, noon, and night, and put around the order, its founders and its students, a rampant part of divine love, realizing that since divine love is also divine fire, no human mind need decide whether the tree be good or evil, for the fire will consume all that is evil, quicken all that is good, and cause it to put forth more abundantly, and also protect it from the vicious insects that would destroy it. This divine fire is the spiritual force which alone can purify and redeem the world in these troublous times. The use of the use of the protecting invocation is therefore constructive in the highest sense. We do not have to fight evil or think of the personalities through whom evil is manifesting, or of those who are inharmonious, who persecute us, or even of our so-called enemies, if we have any. All we have to do is use this invocation and see ourselves and the order surrounded by the living flame, and rest assured that it will consume all the evil it contacts, and at the same time will stimulate and bring forth all the germs of good that exists, even in the hearts of evildoers, also in ourselves. Only when the days of testing are over, Saturn's reign, can there be peace on earth, goodwill toward men, under the influence of the mystical planet Uranus. The planetary configuration, which sometimes seem alarmed so many, namely the position of Uranus on one side with Sun and all the other planets on the other side pulling against it, announced not a physical cataclysm as some feared, although many minor disasters have resulted, but the terrific and united opposition of all that pertains to the old order of things, the old cycle under Saturn, to the manifestation of the deeper occult, spiritual, mystical forces and teachings of the new day, all of which are ruled by Uranus, and which at this time are already finding themselves entangled in the last testings of Saturn. In other words, all teachings, societies, orders, especially all pertaining to the occult or spiritual, must stand or fall according to their fruits. For the mighty whirlwind of earthly opposition to all things belonging to the new day is already shaking the branches of the various trees, and only those whose roots are sunk deep in the soil of spiritual realities, in faith, in power of things not seen and anchored around the rock of truth, can stand the testing. Only those whose roots are sunk deep. So, Joel, you talking about know thyself and know who you are and whatever like that. That's you being grounded, right? We were talking about earlier about how beneficial it is to get yourself out the city sometime, so you can ground, right? So you can sink your roots deep, your spiritual energies, being in tune with nature, being in the grass, have the feet on the soil, things like that, right? Those whose roots are sunk deep in the soil of the spiritual realities. Right? The realities of the spiritual are the things that are manifested, that we know are there. It's not assumption. We're not guessing. There's no belief of anything. It's us knowing that those energies are there and tapping into those energies in any ways that, we find out that that's how you can tap in, whether it's meditation, whether it's, what you eat, when you eat, what you drink, when you drink, taking advantage of the things that were given to us to exercise these spiritual energies so that they can manifest and they can have some type of place in our existence. And faith in the power of things not seen and anchored around the rock of truth. So falsehood doesn't even stand a chance. Lies don't stand a chance. Misrepresentations don't stand a chance, because the rock of truth, or even if we go back to what Juali was saying, the solid rock of foundation is that truth that he has his foot on, right? The truth is there. The truth is always going to be there. Are we going to gravitate to it, or are we going to gravitate to what's not truth? And again, constantly being tested and being tried is going to get us to that place where it's not even going to be anything that we have to work at like that. It's just going to be a natural occurrence. You know what I mean? You know that wrong is evident. You have to be that truth. You see evil happening, you're just going to do good naturally. It's not going to be something that you have to, you know, put all this energy to. You know, again, the astrological aspect. You know, recognizing that the forces are constantly in motion, constantly moving. Are you moving with those forces, or are you moving against them? Moving against them, you're probably going to have a hard time, right? Because they're moving in fluidity for a reason. You know, when they talk about like sacred geometry and things like that, that the appearance is chaotic, but it's actually organized. It's organized to a level where stuff has to be divine if it's that organized, right? And us getting ourselves to that place that everybody is, you know, when you look at the sacred geometry and there's always lines crossing, right? At the intersection of the lines crossing is every being. And we have a place, right, in this chaos. We have a place to play to make sure that the stuff stays aligned. As soon as you're void of intuition and you're not going with what the divine mind is telling you, you know, they say Juali told us about holy breath, and that we're not recognizing that breath's holy because, you know, you're gonna tap yourself into yourself. If you breathe properly and realize the breath and recognize it, it's gonna be doing something for you. You know, all we have to do is you know, take these little aspects. You know, you don't even have to become masters of them. Just know that they're there and work with them, and then they will work with you to make you master. Right?
Yeah, because that's something that we should be having since we were born, but it was laid away from us. So now if we just start to tap back into it, it will come back as it was in us from now.
Mm-hmm.
We lose that touch.
Yeah. We'll just do a Quran readings. Chapter 26, Holy Instructions of Unity. And then chapter 30, Social Duties. And all this is going back to the whole thing of the faith. The faith without works is dead. So we want to make sure that our trust and our faith in what Noble Juali presented to us is exercised by us putting the lessons into action. XXV1 and XXX. Holy Instructions of Unity. The gifts of the understanding are the treasures of Allah, and He appointed to everyone his portion in what measure seemed good unto himself. Hath He endowed thee with wisdom? Hath He enlightened thy mind with the knowledge of truth? Communicate it to the ignorant for their instruction. Communicate it to the wise for thine own improvement. True wisdom is less presuming than folly. These wise men doubted often, and changeth his mind. The fool is obstinate, and doubteth not. He knoweth all things but his own ignorance. The pride of emptiness is an abomination, and to talk much is the foolishness of folly. Nevertheless, it is the part of wisdom to hear with patience their impertinence, and to pity their absurdity. Yet be not puffed up by thine own conceit, neither boast of superior understanding. The clearest human knowledge is but blindness and folly. The wise man feeleth his imperfections and is humble. He laboreth in vain for his own approbation, but the fool peepeth in the shallow stream of his own mind, and is pleased with the pebbles which he seeth at the bottom. He bringeth them up and showeth them as pearls, and with the applause of his brethren delighteth himself. He boasteth of attainments in things that are of no worth, but where it is a shame to be ignorant, he hath no understanding. Even in the path of wisdom he toileth after folly, and shame and disappointment are the reward of his labor. But the wise man cultivates his mind with knowledge, the improvements of arts in his delight, and their utility to the public crowneth with honor. Nevertheless, the attainment of virtue he accounteth as the highest learning, and the science of happiness is the study of his life. Islam. So the gifts of understanding are the treasures of Allah, and he appointeth to everyone his portion. So the same thing that we're talking about in the chapter, that everybody has their own instrument that they got to play.
Yeah.
Allah gave you your powers. Now, what are your powers? And how are you going to take these powers and apply them to your nation? Right? We always use the example of Jackie Chan, who always gives his checks from movies to charity. Yeah.
Wow.
He gets paid handsomely from the taxes that he gets back.
Yeah. I mean, of course of course it's a write-off.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Okay.
But the idea of having, minimal, and then using the maximum that you have to assist others is humanitarian, right? He was appointed a portion, and he took majority of his portion and gave it to his nation, right? The Ashkenazis were appointed their portion, and then they have their own blood bank. They don't go anywhere else to give or receive blood. They go to their own to do that, right? They were given their portion, right? Even though, they stole somebody else's portion, right? With Palestine, right? We were talking about the thing with the congressional record with Biden's son,
Yeah.
right? Right? Everybody was given their piece, and then some people took their piece, did madness with it, and now the stuff is coming back to haunt them because they didn't do what they were supposed to do with what it was they were given. Right? He hath enlightened thy mind with the knowledge of truth. Hath he enlightened thy mind with the knowledge of truth? Communicate it to the ignorant for their instruction. Right? That's hedges and the highways. That's being active. So letting somebody know who doesn't know about this. You don't gotta do anything but communicate it to them. They're gonna do whatever they're gonna do with what you give them. Right? Communicate it to the wise for thine own improvement. So you put the ignorant on game, they're supposed to get wise because you put them on game. You put the wise on game, you're supposed to get wise because the wise is supposed to see you as ignorant now and impart the wisdom on you. Right? Communicate it to the ignorant for their instruction. Communicate it to the wise for thine own improvement. For thine own improvement is us being the ignorant. Even though we're wise, even though we have knowledge and we know whatever, you go sit down with Raz or Taj or somebody, and all of a sudden you know nothing. Right? Now you're ignorant, and now you have to
Like for me,
humble yourself.
I have that experience too.
Yeah.
When I talk to people, they're telling me, man, you got so much knowledge. I said, bro, I just started learning. You think I have so much?
Yeah.
No, Pops, you got so much. I said, no, brother. They thought I have so much, but I'm just sharing what I know.
Right.
Learning from them too.
And then that goes back to 6, what you were saying. The wise man feeleth his imperfections and is humble. The wise man realized, I don't know Jack. I don't know what you people are talking about. You know something, man. People are adepts and all this stuff. Adepts nothing, right? When the guy could do this and make fire, that's some adept stuff. You blink, click your heels twice, and you're in Kansas. Then you're some adept.
Have you seen that? I'd like to know. Have you?
Just click, let's see. Just click, let's see. Just test it out.
Sure.
The wrong shoes.
But it makes sense though, because I mean, when you move to the progression of things, even with numbers and mathematics, you start at 0, you move through to 9, and then you go right back to the beginning.
Yeah.
Once you graduate, once you receive from whatever thing you're receiving, once you have it, you start again as the student all over again. So the more you know you don't know.
Yeah.
The more you know, the more you.
The more
Well,
you
you
know,
don't know.
the more you know you don't know.
The more you know, the more you don't know. The more you know,
But the more you realize,
The more you realize how much more you need to
the
know.
more you find out, the more you realize, wow, there's so much more.
There's so much
to
more.
know.
Okay, you know I have to say it now. I'm just looking at Marcus Yabi.
Yeah.
And this gentleman, I invited to the temple. And not even 5 minutes, I was looking at him and I said, I gotta get him to get me some smaller ones to make some picture frame, but not so big.
Peace work.
And then he walks right in.
Yeah. The pride of emptiness is an abomination, and to talk much is the foolishness of folly. Nevertheless, it is the part of wisdom to hear with patience their impertinence and to pity their absurdity. Right? It is the part of wisdom to hear with patience their impertinence and to pity their absurdity. Right? The talk much people. Right? The flapper gums people. Just talking to talk. Right? Yet be not puffed up by thine own conceit, neither boast of superior understanding. The clearest human knowledge is but blindness and folly. So as much as we get this information and we get all this knowledge, don't get too caught up. Don't get too caught up that we have this knowledge and everything's all right because we got this knowledge. We have all this knowledge, right? Don't have your chest out because right? Just like we're saying, the more you know, the more you realize you don't know jack. So yeah, you can speak on what you're experienced in, right? But know that there's always more. There's always something else that you probably are not privy to or weren't privy to.
It's like the lesson of having grace or being humble,
Mm-hmm.
And from that perspective, it's like you have to have, like I said, if you're here way up at 9, about to graduate, there are still people and experiencers of 0 all the way up to where you are, and they all exist right now.
Yeah.
So you have to give space to, the person who's still there while you're here,
Mhm.
because you'll be in that position someplace else.
Yeah.
Somewhere else, or
Somewhere
later on.
Mhm. So the wise man laboreth in vain for his own perfections, but the fool peepeth in the shallow stream of his own mind, and is pleased with the pebbles which he seeth at the bottom. He brings them up and shows them as pearls, and with the applause of his brethren delighteth himself. So when you look at, for example, you have the online realm, where individuals can't really get checked how they're supposed to get checked, talking crazy. So they're able to take these pebbles and whatever like that, show them as pearls to other dummies who are riding. They're like, oh wow, oh yeah, Taj doesn't teach Noble Drew Ali and all that stuff, and they start going into these realms of absurdities, right? Know that those are the fools dead on. The ones who are showing off their pebbles as pearls. The ones who are telling you $5,000 for these papers, and then 7 papers, and it costs 10 cents a page or whatever like that. Color 25 cents a page, and then telling you $5,000 for some papers, right? Showing the pebbles as pearls, showing people have come to us with they bought nationality cards or whatever like that, and then they go photocopy the cards, and then nothing shows up in the photocopy because the background of the photocopy is dark. Right, the background of the card is dark, so when they copy it in black and white, it's just black, and then you see his eyes and teeth on there for
People pay $5,000 for that.
$5,000. The wise man cultivates his mind with knowledge. The improvements of arts are his delight, and their utility to the public crowneth with honor. Nevertheless, the attainment of virtue he accounteth as the highest learning, and the science of happiness is the study of his life. Chapter 30, social duties. When thou considerest thy wants, when thou beholdest thy imperfections, acknowledge his goodness, O son of humanity, who honored thee with humanity, endued thee with speech, and placed thee in society to receive and confer reciprocal helps and mutual obligations, protection from the injuries, thy enjoyments of the comforts, and the pleasure of life. All these thou owest to the assistance of others, and couldst not enjoy but in the bands of society. It is thy duty, therefore, to be a friend to mankind, as it is thy interest that man should be friendly to thee. As the rose breathes sweetness from his own nature, so the heart of a benevolent man produceth good works. He enjoyeth the ease and tranquillity of his own breast, and he rejoiceth in the happiness and prosperity of his neighbor. He openeth not his ear unto slander. The faults and the failings of men give a pain to his heart. His desire is to do good, and he researcheth out the occasions thereof. In removing the oppression of another, he relieveth himself. From the largeness of his mind, he comprehendeth in his wishes the happiness of all men, and from the generosity of his heart, he endeavoreth to promote it. Right? And even though Drew Ali said this is not a social organization, we have certain obligations as a society. We have certain obligations to protect each other, to enjoy the pleasures and the comforts of life. This is something that's owed to us once we're in society, right? It's something that is a duty, right? Being a friend to mankind, and being that friend to mankind is so that others will be friendly with us. Helping others out is so that we can get help in return. Guarantee, if you're not putting that energy out there, don't look for it, right? And it's probably not gonna be there for you, right? The heart of a benevolent man produces good works. Going back again to Aquaria, that faith without works is dead. He enjoyeth the ease and tranquility of his own breast, and rejoiceth in the happiness and prosperity of his neighbor. Right? How many people have you see the neighbor with some stuff that they don't have, and now they're cussing them or whatever, or wishing bad on them, right? When they should be honoring, they should be happy for their neighbor being blessed or receiving blessings. You know, again, so that the thing could come back on you, regardless of who that is.
And even if you're gonna go and experience jealousy or envy, you're still doing the same injustice.
Mhm.
You might not be wishing them bad, but you're wishing yourself bad.
Yeah.
It's the same thing.
And it all starts from selfishness, of course.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Without self, you wouldn't have envy or hate or
Yeah.
all these negative things without selfishness.
Yeah. The faults and the failings of men give a pain to his heart. He opened not his ear unto slander. And so, you know, the slanderous nature of man are part of their faults and failings that you just have to recognize that, you know, just like we were saying earlier, our people are some of the most toxic people on the planet. We got issues that we never dealt with, we never looked at, we never faced, we never talked about. We suppressed everything, subdued everything, tried to hide from stuff, and eventually things are gonna show themselves to you. Eventually they're gonna show themselves to you. And where are you when those things show themselves? Are you in a place where you can deal with it and face up to these things, or are you in a place where you're gonna pretend it's not there and, you know, throw the sheet over it, it's not there, and not deal with it, right? The desire is supposed to the desire of us is to do good, right? You know, us saying that we're Moors, we should be looking at wanting to do good, wanting to put that energy forth all the time, doing as good as we could do, just so that energy again is reciprocated, and then not reciprocated to the individual, but reciprocated to the nation. Right? We being ourselves amongst others would allow others to see, oh, the Moors are right, not the individual is, right? When they're reflecting back to us, right? We want the reflection of whatever it is we're gonna get to be on us as a whole. It's like I remember Brother Hannibal was talking about this energy ritual that they were doing when they had everybody sort of in a circle, and then there was one individual in the middle, and they were having a hard time or something like that or whatever. So the ritual was, okay, we're going to put all our good energy to this one individual. You know, so this individual, and you know, they put the energy onto them or whatever like that. So I think like a little time after, they're having a discussion about the thing, about the ritual, and you know, did it work? And the lady's like, yeah, you know what I mean? It's crazy how things just changed automatically just because of all these people, you know, just putting this energy to me, you know? And somebody confessed that, well, while everybody's eyes were closed or whatever like that, I put my hand in the thing to get some.
Oh, wow.
I put my hand in the thing to get some, and business hasn't been freaking greater ever since that thing happened. The amount of business that I have right now, I got too much work. I got so much vibes from just sticking my finger in. The stuff wasn't even for me. You know what I mean? I just put myself in there to get some, and what I got was more than I could even deal with. I got too much work now. Right? Now, you know, it could be a positive and negative. You know what I mean? That could be your judgment, putting in your stuff, take people's stuff. You know what I mean? That's what you get. Now you're backlogged. You're looking like you don't do good work or whatever because you got too much, you know? Right? But
And just been patient. You would have had his turn.
right, everybody you went around the circle, you would have got your turn, you know? But just to say that the reflection should be on everybody. So everybody gets their piece, gets their portion. Because, you know, once you put that energy out that, you know who you are, and people see that you know who you are, automatically the energy changes how they deal with you, opposed to how they deal with everybody else who you know doesn't know or assumes to know and doesn't know. Right. Any other thoughts on social duties?
I'll just say the nature of things is attractive, you know. So when you're offering a frequency or a vibration, and then you sit in this room, for instance, the people around you are going to be experiencing you and having their own vibrational interactions with you, whether or not you're aware of it.
Yeah.
And therefore, what you're offering, again, I mean, universal law states that we're only going to receive what we're offering. So if I'm offering this frequency, and the next person beside me is offering some other different frequency, and then somehow we find some sort of balance and stasis between us. Now we're both offering this, you know, high frequency, and then it's attractive, and more people now are offering this vibration or offering that frequency.
Yeah.
That's how it works. That's the way that we end up, you know, reflecting as a whole. It's because individually we're reflecting and offering, you know, individually, and then it is a collective. Everything here is, you know, like a, what's the word? Like a prism, like a, you know, when you look through those kaleidoscopes and you see all the shapes and they like form and they, that's what it is, right? Whenever you find one space, you're also going to find everything else. No matter where you go, what point you touch, what person you find, you're going to find the collective energy from everyone. So keeping that in mind, that it goes both ways, right? The collective is going to affect you and you're going to affect the collective.
You know, another thing that's so very sad is just the criminality that they deal with words that they give to us. For example, even the word individual and persons, all those names, you know, keep you back in, you know, in their word, basically. One of the words that I was so, I'm not going to say upset, my heart grew when I found out that even the word amen means no man. So when you say a prayer and you end it with amen, everything that you just said is canceled out, and that's so evil. It is so evil how they've taught us.
How does that a woman?
No, another reason why it doesn't work.
Yeah, when you put a in front of words, it cancels everything, cancel out. So that's what I'm saying.
You know, what I've heard a lot is absolute.
Yeah.
That and another word, a name, Christ, Jesus Christ. In every single movie I watch, it's got Jesus Christ in it.
Yeah.
Why?
Exactly.
And anybody has to be like, I don't understand. It's never
It's a
gone.
program, right?
It's not what it is. A pro. Yeah, it's crazy. Every
Yeah.
single movie, it's got to see it at least once.
But think about it, imagine all these people that believe that praise, and at the end of it, they say amen,
Yeah.
cancel out everything.
Yeah.
Or even if
Sad.
you say amen before you start read or after, it just cancels out everything, and then things are evil.
But then the other
Satanic.
part of it too is the origin
Yeah.
of them taking these things. You know what I mean? So them taking the perversion
Yeah.
of things
Yeah.
that they took Amen, because it's really Amen Ra you're supposed to be saying at the end in order to invoke but if they take the Ra off,
Yeah.
right,
Zero.
which was the fire, which is the word,
Yeah.
then it cancels out as well, you know. So there's all these little there's all these different things that they'll do to mess with the energy. You know what I mean? Just like when they say, you go through scripture and they talk about Lord and God and Savior, and then they're going through all these things, and people's mind, oh yeah, they're talking about the same guy. No, they're not. That's all different entities they're talking about.
But they also ad lib and they'll say Lord, and now it's not just the Lord, it's the Lord Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
And it's not, like it's all
Yeah.
mixed and mumble jumble. I spent time in church this weekend just because I had to, and I never intend to go into those places, but
You go because your parents or family goes?
my grandmother transitioned and it was her service. And it was just funny. And I tried very hard not to laugh in those spaces because obviously everyone there is very much serious about it, right? So I just try my best to laugh to myself, but the pastor was speaking and reading some scripture and talking about how, basically alluding to the fact that as man, we're nothing and we have to deal with this jealous God and we have to deal with this, this calamity that imposes upon us. And then all we can do is pray and hope, with our greatest strength for him to deliver unto us, the ways of being the best way we can be, because without, that deliverance, we have no way, we're just blind. And it's like, the way that it's offered is to disconnect you.
Yes.
It's just what it is. You know what I mean? The words in the book, if you actually take the proper perspective and read the Bible, read a verse, you receive something from it. But the moment you start, perverting it.
Well, to time out what you were saying, actually, when it says he's a jealous God, because if you know what the Gnostics are saying, they say Yahweh is the devil.
Exactly.
Because he created the material world.
Yeah.
So, right there, right? They said they're worshiping the jealous God. They're hoping.
But then they mix together Yeshua and Yahweh, and then they say Yeshua is Yahweh and Yahweh is Yeshua. They have the whole thing all jacked up.
My uncle passed away and they rushed my aunt off the stage. Hurry up, you gotta hurry up with your speech because we got other things.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Because you said transition, right?
Yeah.
And I like that word that you use that because it kind of puts less fear into us of what's going to happen.
Yeah.
That's something that's going to transcend.
I like to think that the experience of death is exhilarating. I'm never
Yeah.
thinking anything else.
Yeah.
What's the point of
How?
anticipating this terrible thing? Who cares how? Once you're dead, you're not here.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
exactly. Are you afraid of the suffering before death, or are you afraid of death itself? Because I feel like the suffering aspect, that makes sense. We're physical, we're human, we know what it's like to interact with physical life. So to have that pain, whatever it is, and that experience of it is one thing. But the moment of being here and then that moment's gone and now the next moment you're no longer here,
That's kind of the
that
fear I
aspect,
have for me.
I
I
think
don't know
most
what's going
people,
to happen.
most people have forgot that fear of the unknown. They don't know what, because no one
Exactly.
died and came
Yeah.
back and
Said,
said,
hey, what
yeah,
the
it's basically the unknown that they're afraid of.
Yeah.
right, which is why I just assume,
Yeah.
you know.
You got afraid of not taking Should have no fear.
No fear.
No, fear is an acronym and they're using it incorrectly.
Yeah.
It's an
That's
acronym.
everything in one.
Mhm.
Elements of life, fire, earth, air, water,
Water,
the
And their
elements of
strength,
life.
their power.
Yeah.
Completely. Turn it into fear.
When they say water, be river, the river, it's for our river.
Yeah.
Because even right now, the title Lord and God, they're just businesses.
Yeah.
They're businesses.
Yeah.
The part of it, corporation within itself. Lord and God.
Well, we have landlords,
Yeah.
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
It's not the same word for no reason.
Yeah.
Ownership over.
Yeah, exactly.
Is there any questions or comments?
Oh, another thing, remember when we were talking about the Muslim and the Muslim? I think sometimes there's only the men goes to the meet,
Mhm,
the meet, right?
mhm.
Sometimes only the men go.
Most times only the men go.
Good, that's the Muslim. But us as the Muslim, who did Noble Joy have in his hand? Another man or a woman? A woman, that tells you big difference. Big difference. They don't even bring woman into their in their temple or whatever.
Yeah.
Noble Joy to make sure they have mama in his hand.
Many of those men have a hard time looking when
Yes, I noticed that. When
they
you're
won't
here,
make eye contact.
I know.
They walk into this room, they'll say hello to each man and disregard the women.
Again, that's that, the same thing you're talking about with, them not understanding what's really going on,
No.
not realizing that, oh, that's an acronym. You can't really be using that as a word like that. You know what I mean? There's more to it, and even with how many Muslims are gonna detach once you start talking about Allah's a feminine word and all that stuff and Allah and Allah and whatever. Yeah.
He's
Yeah.
Allah in Greek.
Yeah.
Allah means I think.
Mm.
Allah means like come or go.
Like to move, a movement.
I think so.
I think so.
Allah is it's used a lot.
Yeah.
Because like God is a kind of a God in doing thing too. Like
Yeah.
Doing.
Yeah. It's an action. Yeah.
God, you be like God.
Well, it's the G and the D that kind of solidify it in this plane, but really the sound is ah. It has nothing to do with the beginning or the end. It's sound. The sound we make in words are the vowels.
Yeah.
Right? The consonants are the things that change the meaning of the vowel. So really, God is just ah. It's just a sound, that's creation. When you make love to a woman, she says ah. Or men. It's the sound of creation, literally. You know?
Yeah.
It's
Absolutely not.
it's all aligned.
Yeah.
Just like the way the heart beats, it's the same vibration that gives off.
Yeah.
Sound,
Yeah.
word,
Yeah.
Any other comments or questions?
I want to know what you were saying when saying about bringing back the dead or something like that. That you said that you should leave the. You were saying at the start about leaving the ones that have passed in the past and stop bringing them back.
Oh yeah, that was from matter of fact, we could read that.
I need to elaborate on that.
Yeah, that was from
Like, what better can they be doing than us here? Why not bring them back? Because
let's put
they're
it
not doing as good over on this side.
we'll put it
That
in
kind of
full
question, like that, that's feeling like where they are.
we'll put it in full context.
No.
Death is no enemy of man. It is a friend who, when the work of life is done, just cuts the cord that binds the human boat to earth, that it may sail on to smoother seas.
Right.
No language can describe a mother's worth, and yours was tried and true. But she was not called hence until her tasks were done. The cause of death are always for the best, for we are solving problems there as well as here. And one is sure to find himself where he can solve his problems best. It is selfishness to make one wish to call again to earth departed souls. Then let your mother rest in peace. Just let her noble life be strengthened and inspiration unto you. A crisis in your life has come, and you must have a clear conception of the work that you are called here to do. So the call for death is from a friend. So when someone dies, death, the friend, called them to do some other work somewhere else, because their work here is done. There's nothing more that they can do here.
I know
Right.
there's something to in the Quran there where in the church and the Bible they never tell us anything about, not much about Jesus other than 12 years old and
Yeah.
whatever.
Mhm.
But even 10-year-old when he's having party for his birthday, they offer. And when he would get news that Joseph died back home, his father died, he didn't say book me a flight, I gotta go there. He said, oh, his job is done. And that's it. Like no big deal, his job is done.
Yeah, yeah.
We here now, we booking flight to go to funeral and start crying and all kind of stuff like that. And all he said, oh, his job is done. That's it.
Yeah, jump on the casket and all that.
I've moved through. I've moved through 2 transitions very close together of very important people to me recently, and there's this part of me that I'm experiencing where I have my physical carnal connections with those people, and the karma that it created, all of those things. And then I have me who is aware and knowledgeable of what's actually occurring. And they both exist. They both exist, and it's like many people just get stuck in that, oh, I miss them. Oh, how could you? Why would you
leave me?
Blah, blah, blah,
What did I do down there? What did I do?
Right, but it's funny because it's a natural way to be. The lower self is always there. It never goes away.
Yeah.
It's a consistent. Oh yeah, it's a perspective if I want to have it, but it only brings turmoil and strife. So once you find it and you hit that bottom or you hit that lower self space, it's for you to then realize it and move out of it and get back in alignment with yourself. Because I watched myself. I had tears to cry. I had many tears to cry, but it only had to do with the fact that I went to my family's home. My auntie is the one who we sit when everybody's having their experience. They're all having fun. They're all doing their wildish things, and me and auntie are in the conveyance, smoking a spliff and speaking about philosophy or speaking about whatever, or her experience or my experience. That's the relationship we had. So now she's passed, and I'm in my family space again, and I'm sitting going, oh, there's no one in a second, And so that part of me is like, oh, boo-hoo, I don't have my friend anymore. And then there's this other half of me that the moment she passed, I felt her. I spoke her words in her eulogy. I took them from her energetically. I know they came from her. So she's still with me. So it's a totally different space. Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's a difference between carrying them with you and wanting them back.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
In that situation, you can feel and touch, and the other situation, you know that they're just there.
Yeah.
Without being able to, to touch that,
To
but
touch
you can
them,
feel them, or you can,
Some schools are taught that, say that if you don't make that decision to let them go, they won't go, they can't leave. And transcend to the other level, because they're still being, I guess, like an energetic tide or cord that hasn't been cut by the people who are still alive, that still
I'll be cutting cords to people all the time.
As long as it's in the world, it's in you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As within, so without.
Yeah.
Thank you, Morris, for all answering that for me.
That's all.
Please, bro, no problem. Any other questions, comments before we close out?
Comments, it's a good turnout.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, just know we're here again. You know, the restrictions are lifted, so we're back. So we'll be here Sundays 12 to 3. The 24th we have our Whitby session. Next 2 Sundays from now. Yeah, 24th we'll be out in Whitby. And probably depends how the weather is, but probably more closer to June. We're gonna start getting our in the park series going on again, being outside. So just keep close to the email for that.
But we got air conditioning here, so we don't gotta worry.
Yeah, it's not too bad. We're all right.
Just looking.
We're all right. We're good. We're good right now.
A little confession, actually. Not last week, the week before, I of course took the bus because my car's broken, and sadly it's still broken. It seems like the mechanic gave me a run around, with the transmission.
Yeah.
Someone gave me his number, and I found out that he didn't have a shop. He just works on the floor. You can't change the transmission on the floor. So anyways, not last week, and the weekend before, I took the bus, and the manly part of me now got embarrassed because when I got down here, it was like after 2, I'm like, I had to turn back out of shape.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the manly part of me. I mean, I know I'm usually late, but not that late.
Yeah.
So me didn't want to go out the door, so I had to turn back.
Yeah.
And then last week, of course, there was not a meeting, but
Yeah, we're in
that
Amazon
was
last
one of the
weekend.
earliest that I came
Yeah.
to. Right?
For real.
Yeah. I missed it the last week. I turned back, so.
Yeah.
This brother, this brother was here as well. That I came.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it does happen,
Yeah.
I'm just glad to be here. Yeah.
I mean, again, it's it's that thing of we're over the years,
Yes.
trying to figure out how this could work. You know what I mean? And unfortunately, with life happening, majority only have weekends.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? To do things. So this is part of the thing with trying to get some finance, trying to get some donor, philanthropic, whoever,
Right.
so that this could be a full-time thing.
Yes.
Because this can't be a one day a week thing. You know what I mean? This has to be 9 to 5, 12 to 12, 24/7 is what this has to be. Yeah. And again, just going back with the different, everybody's different schedules. Majority of people, they might not have weekends. You know what I mean? They got their own stuff to do on weekends, and weekdays is all they got or whatever. So it sort of comes with the territory, but which is why we do, the outdoor things. We do the in the park series, we do the barbecue, things like that, so that it's a little bit easier for Moors to sort of come together.
And plus, I mean, even when we're not here, of course, we're still more, so we gotta do the work of tomorrow.
Yeah. Regardless, yeah. It's not limited to the building,
Yes.
but the buildings are an integral part to us, at least having a base, where whatever is going down, we can be at this spot, So I think that's the only update is 24th. We'll be in Whitby, so we won't be here on the 24th. So just so.
Yeah.
Right, 20. Yeah, so we're doing that, and yeah, and we'll see what's going on from there. Yeah, Omar, was there any
Just
updates or anything? Or?
astrological thing on the 29th or 30th, which is observation stargazing of
Yeah, 29th, yeah, 29th or 30th. There's supposed to be
27th to the 30th, but I think we'll do it on the 29th.
yeah, 27th to 30th. There's a conjunction. So we wanted to go to the planetarium up at Bathurst and Steeles or something. They got a planetarium up there. So we're gonna look into making that a trip. It's probably gonna be either the Friday night, 29th night, or the 30th night.
10 p.m.
Yeah,
Friday.
yeah. So we're gonna look into to what that pertains. I'm sure there's some type of finance or something for that. So we'll look into that, and
I think what I'm looking to do is they
we'll
have
keep you.
an observatory up north there. I think you can gain entrance there without parking. So I'm gonna go up there and I'll survey it, but I'm hoping that it's just us showing up there either in the middle of the night or super early in the morning. It'll obviously be on the days that there won't be any overcast. And as I said, it's supposed to be a conjunction between Jupiter and Venus.
The new moon is the 30th as well.
I mean, as I said, so yeah, it's one of those 2 days, but just stay tuned and we'll get more information. Sorry.
Any other comments or questions before we close out? That's good.
All the construction here is all finished?
Yeah, so they sealed up over there. They sealed up on the pillar right there.
Right,
They closed back this thing, so we were here today. We did a little clean, get some of the dust out the way.
right.
And we're probably gonna do another one maybe in another few weeks or whatever. Brother Justice, who did the floors, is gonna get him to come and do a rebuff, get the floors back a little bit. And yeah,
So does that mean until then, the Saturday school for children is suspended, or?
We've just been going based on whether or not the temple's clean. So it's not
Okay.
suspended.
Yeah.
We've been online
Right,
consistently,
right.
right? Yeah, I mean, by next weekend, it should be fine. If you guys are, when are you cleaning again?
it's probably not. As far as right now, is at least maybe another 2 weeks or something, 3 weeks or something. But as of right now, you guys good to go.
This week, Yasun has mentioned that he wants to be in the temple next week.
Yeah.
But it was really just based on,
Yeah. Because it was mainly that stuff. Because that's done now. So yeah, so it should be good. Should be good to go.
I like to clean.
Yeah.
I do too.
Islam Moors, we'll just close out and
Actually, I've got just,
Good.
it's an issue that I have basically. I mean, got a couple of crates in Jamaica. Been there for about 2 months basically, and of course I do want to get down there, so I'm trying to figure out different ways to get down without taking a vaccine. And someone told me last night that, if I have my Jamaican passport, I can fly on the Jamaican passport without getting the vaccine, but I haven't really checked it out to see
they
if
aren't,
it's
I heard
true.
that they aren't really checking
Not anymore.
vaccine passports anymore.
It's gone.
It's just a,
Slap in my face.
they haven't announced it, but they're not even checking.
Yeah.
People are flying all over without any.
All different airlines?
All
You don't
different
need
airlines.
anything, you just go fly. You
I
might
would
need,
go.
you might need a test. I think it's used.
Order them, I give you issues, but I don't think.
Yeah, the
Flyers
border.
will be-
Ready.
Yeah, there's nothing to be concerned about Jamaica, though. That's already.
Yeah.
So remember, like last month, the prime
They
minister.
stopped their thing before.
So
Well,
he
they
threw up his
just-
hands at me because he got fed, like they like to make a show, right?
Right,
yeah.
Jamaican politics, but he made a show of how the citizens aren't, listening. So he's done with it. What's the point? You don't care.
They also declared their moving away,
From the
what's it
Queen?
called? From the
Oh,
Queen.
yeah.
I don't know the word.
Okay, you don't have
There's all
nothing.
sorts of things happening.
Canadian passport as well? I did not know.
yeah, we'll keep an eye on that. Barbados did it already, so it could be a thing going down the line with all the different islands taking their place. Islam, Morris, 5 on the left, 2 on the right. Allah, the Father of the universe. Father of love. Truth. Peace. Freedom. And justice. Allah is my protector. My guide. And my salvation. By night. And by day. His holy prophet. Noble Juali. Islam. Ashe. Peace, bro. Everything's peaceful. So